Welcome back. It's season 4 of Serious and Silly with Scott and Sheila. Sheila's off this week, but the show continues with a fantastic guest. At 6'7", he's definitely our tallest guest, but he's also one of our most important guests. He was a Pac-10 All-Star, Pac-10 Lineman of the Year, played 6 years in the NFL, including a couple of years with the Patriots, won when they were 18-0, ultimately losing in the Super Bowl. Ryan, sorry to remind you about that. The name of his book is My Life on the Line, How the Damn NFL Near Killed Me, but ended up saving my life. It's a fascinating story. It's heartbreaking, but hopefully it has a happy ending to it. And he's here to share his journey with us. So welcome to Champlain College, Rhino Callahan. How are you today?
I'm great. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you so much. And as I said, football player, but also turned LGBTQ activist. You work a lot with LGBTQ athletes, and that's kind of where we wanted to start. You started playing football around the same time you came out to yourself. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, so I knew I was different when I was, a kid, 5, 6, 7. I knew I was gay when I hit puberty, and I started playing football my freshman year of high school, so grade 9. I never loved football. I never watched it. But I always assumed that was expected of me, just the family I grew up in. And, I think everyone has certain expectations placed upon them. And so I played football, and naturally, because I was huge, I was good at it. Obviously, it took more and more work the higher levels I went up. But so yeah, I started my freshman year. I realized that I'm good at it. It helps you really in the social aspects of high school with a popular crowd. And, and then as the years went on, I started to get attention from universities to play in college. And the more I played, the more I realized that it was a great cover for being gay. I really relied on everyone's ignorance, assuming that a gay guy couldn't play football. And I used really all the stereotypes to my advantage. And that's what kept me playing football for as long as I did.
Yeah, you said that basically you used it kind of as your beard, the big cover up, and it just kind of turned out that you became really good at it.
Yeah, I in the gay world, the term beard is typically the female you date as a cover, but for me, that was football. And I don't think one person ever questioned my sexuality just based off what I was able to do on the field.
So reading up on you, you said you're from California, but you're from a conservative part of California. And one of the things that kind of shaped this early notion of what a gay person is what you heard and saw from your family.
Yeah, I think what most people don't realize is most of California is very conservative, but most people are liberal. They just live in very small areas. So I grew up in far northern California, and like you said, a very conservative area. My family is all very blue collar, and I would just hear very negative things about, the gay community. 4 of my uncles were firefighters in San Francisco and during the AIDS epidemic. So I would hear things all the time about calls they went on and situations they found gay guys in. And they didn't know I was gay, but as a kid, you hear people saying things, you internalize it, then you expect them to believe those things about you. And that's really what started everything mentally for me, in a negative way.
Yeah, I mean, you hear a lot of things like, and we hear it, just people saying things like, that's so gay, or, that's gay. And when you speak to them about it, they kind of like brush it off, not knowing the impact that it has on people, just making the term gay seem like something very negative.
Yeah, words really do matter, especially as you're a kid. Now that I'm actually comfortable with my sexuality and everything else, I'm fine with it. But when you're around kids, your words really do matter, especially if they're really looking for acceptance and trying to figure out who they can trust or who they think would love them. So I always caution people to watch what you say, especially around kids.
So your story gets a little bit dark, and that's why I'm so happy that you're here to share it with us. But you talk about openly how your goal was, when football ended, was to basically end your life. And, that's a continuing story at every level that you got through, so ultimately, football kind of just gave you some extra years. So can you just talk a little bit about where this kind of started, where your plan, was like, once football ends, that's going to be the end of Rhino Callahan?
Yeah, I didn't handle being closeted and gay very well at all. I was convinced my whole life my family would just never accept me. And back then I thought I needed their acceptance and my close friends' acceptance. And I just never heard one positive thing come from them that would lead me to believe, they would love me if they knew who I was. And football to me was the only thing that would keep me closeted. And I thought without it, there's no way I can go on. And I thought my family would respect me more if I wasn't around than if I was out. And that's what, put me in that dark place I was in. Skipping ahead, I'm closer now with my family than ever. And I was totally wrong about everything. I just never gave them the chance to accept me until the very last minute.
Did it ever get to a point in time where you thought like, okay, maybe football wasn't going that well, or you hadn't thought about something where you thought like, okay, this is kind of, the end is coming?
Yeah, the last 2 years in the NFL, when I was playing for Kansas City Chiefs, I got injured both years. I hurt my shoulder again, which was an ongoing thing throughout my career. And then I tore a lower leg muscle. And, once you have so many surgeries, so many injuries, become a liability. You're just costing the team money and you're not able to play. And after that happened, I knew that, okay, my career is over. And because of all the injuries, I was taking a ton of painkillers. I became addicted and then quickly, became a junkie. And the season was coming to an end, and our athletic trainer on the team noticed I was acting goofy. I thought I was doing a good job of hiding the painkiller addiction. But, he was a trained professional. He noticed something was going on. So he approached me in a discreet way and suggested I go talk to someone. Up to that point in my life, I was controlling all the conversations and manipulating people just so we didn't have to talk about my personal life. But the person he sent me to, Dr. Wilson, over the course of months, I guess I got more and more comfortable with her and finally opened up to her, knowing that she couldn't tell anyone. And she basically said in a more professional way, well, if you're just going to kill yourself, why don't you find out if these people will accept you?
Wow.
And that's what led to me ultimately, starting the process of coming out.
So that was when you were in the NFL, 6 seasons, like I said, ultimately career cut short, but like you said, by a shoulder injury. So usually Sheila is here, my co-host, and she sent me a question.
Okay.
So if you're mad at it, you can get mad at Sheila. So I'm just passing this along. Like I said, you played with the Patriots, and we're all kind of wondering, or Sheila's wondering, is Tom Brady a robot built by Bill Belichick and Robert Kraft and the evil Patriots empire? Or
well, what can I say about that? He is a great guy. I think people always wonder that. He is a fabulous guy. I was playing
just
for New
seems
England.
too perfect.
Yeah, there's what you see him as a friend and what you see him as a celebrity or whatever. It's not always the same. But he is a great guy on and off the field. I played for New England 06 through 09. But back then he wasn't married, didn't have kids, so he'd come out and have fun and have some drinks and stuff. And but yeah, he was just a very down to earth, good guy. But on the field, he was just very serious, which obviously he should be, and that's led to all of his success.
So so you're saying that he is a robot? It's okay. You might not be able to tell us, but just blink twice if he's a robot.
Yeah.
Was there a point in time where you actually, like, I know it kind of started out, football as being your cover. Was there a point in time that you really started enjoying football?
I mean, I think the game itself is kind of silly, to be honest, just hitting people and moving a ball. But the competition part of it, I did love. And I think that's what I miss today, is just having something to compete for, or I think you understand what I'm trying to say. And it's just, if anything, I missed that. Yeah, I did make a lot of friends when I was playing, and after I came out, I thankfully I was able to stay friends with all these people. It turns out they didn't care either that I was gay. Yeah.
Yeah, it's amazing because like you're very, 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 very good at football, and it kind of just, something that started off so not innocently, but as started off as a bruise turned out into like you being able to play at the highest level, and especially for the Patriots. I mean, the legendary franchise of the NFL.
Yeah, I don't regret anything. Obviously, I had some very dark, awful times, but all that put me to where I'm at today. I'm 38, retired, happy, living a good life, get to do what I want. So I really wouldn't change anything. Yeah, I did get a much later start at life. I didn't really start to get to be myself until I was 30. But I wouldn't go back and change anything.
So you talked about controlling the narrative, and when you talk to ex-athletes, one of the things they miss the most is just being with the guys every day. Your locker room experience wasn't the same. You kind of, I read a story where you said to the, I think it was the GM of the Chiefs, that your thing was to go leave the locker room and get coffee, and drink 3 or 4 coffees, because you didn't want to be part of not really the toxic masculinity, but normal things that guys talk about in locker rooms.
Yeah, there is locker room talk, but the overwhelming majority of the talk in the locker room and the guys they're great. It's not, it's not extreme in really any way. Obviously, guys talk about girls a lot, but I just felt uncomfortable in a lot of those situations, or I almost felt guilty, like, oh, if they knew I was gay, they probably wouldn't want me, sitting here while everyone's changing. It was just something I did to myself, which in reality, they don't care. Like they don't care. There's guys in the NFL right now that are openly gay, and none of their teammates care. So it was just really something I did to myself in my own mind that I blew way out of proportion.
That's what I was going to say. Looking back, it's amazing the narrative you can build in your mind, right?
Yeah,
Like
I did it all.
90%
I
of the
did it
things
all
you
to
were thinking.
myself. I did it all to myself. Yeah, when I was a kid, I heard these things, but I never stopped for 20 minutes to reevaluate my situation and think, maybe it could be different. I just kept piling on the negativity, and I didn't stop to look at anything positive.
So reading about it, one of the reasons you ultimately ended up coming out is because you said to yourself, people are going to wonder why I killed myself. They're not going to. So I might as well start at least telling a few of my close friends, if you can. And I know it's a very interesting situation for everyone. But can you tell us a little bit about your coming out and how that happened?
Yeah. So the first person I came out to is Dr. Wilson. She was a psychologist that the team set me up with, without the team actually knowing what my problem was. So I came out to her and kind of developed a plan to come out to other people when I was sitting there with her. And I just followed through on that. After her, I told my best friend who had lived with me at the time, and he gave me a hug, said, love you, and everything was fine. And then I went back out to California. I told my parents, I told my aunt and uncle. I was it was very dramatic, way more dramatic than I I kind of laugh looking back at it, but that was what I feared my whole life, was my parents finding out that I'm gay. And that was like the moment I dreaded. And so I made a much bigger deal out of it than I probably had to, but I sat down with them, just them and me, and told them. And my mom stood up and gave me a hug, told me she loved me. And, my dad wasn't jumping down excited, but he also wasn't throwing things. He didn't kick me out of the house. My worst fears didn't come true. And, it took him probably a year and a half to actually come around to it and start talking to me about it. But everything now has been great with family.
Yeah. And I guess, again, back to the narrative in your head, like if your dad has grown up being taught and thinking the same things that you grew up being taught and thinking of, it's, not that it's normal, but I think it's to be expected that it might take him a little bit time to rewire his brain.
Exactly. And I think looking back, I didn't give him enough. I wasn't patient enough with him, because for 29 years at that point, he had believed everything I told him. He thought I was a straight guy, masculine, going on dates, playing, so for me to drop that on him, that I'm gay, I should have been a little more understanding at the time that it's going to take him a little bit to actually come around and get totally comfortable with it.
No, yeah, it's an amazing story. I mean, it teaches so much to people. And speaking of teaching, like I said in the intro, you now work with LGBTQ athletes. How did that come about? And, was it something that you thought about right away, or it kind of took some time for you to kind of hit your stride on that?
Yeah, it took some time. So I came out to family and close friends in 2012. I didn't come out publicly until 2017. I figured I had to live the life. I had to get my life together, because you don't go from an addict and hating yourself to perfectly fine overnight. So I had to get myself together. And come 2012, I was comfortable enough. So I came out publicly. And after I did that, I was approached by a lot of different brands and different opportunities where people wanted to pay me just because I was gay to do certain things. And it just didn't sit right, profiting off being gay. So I started the charity and donate everything to the charity, and then give back to the community. I also didn't anticipate just how many closeted athletes would reach out and want to meet. So a lot of what I do with the charity is go meet with closeted athletes, or use the funds to go speak at schools. And hopefully in the long run, I'll be able to get more scholarships, because there's a gap to be filled with LGBTQ students who are more or less abandoned by their family or not supported by their family, and then they need help with college. So hopefully I can do more of that in the future. But all that takes money.
So like you said, in 2017, you came out, and, I think as sometimes as tough as it is, how important it is for gay athletes to know that there's others like them. I think one of the things is they always think they're the only ones.
Yeah, every person I talk to usually has the same story, where they didn't feel like they were the only one, but they never had anyone to talk to. So, I know, and a lot of closeted people know, just telling one person is a huge weight off. So I'm happy to be that person that people can reach out to and talk to, and they know I'm not going to, spill the beans and tell the media about them.
Yeah, this is such an amazing story, and I'm so glad, Ryan, that you were able to share it with us. We're going to wrap up, but can you tell us a little bit about the Rhino Callahan Foundation that you just mentioned?
Yeah, so my website is rofdn.org. Like I said, right now I do a lot with closeted LGBTQ athletes, just trying to give them the support they need. A little bit of mentorship here and there through other athletes who've reached out wanting to lend a hand. So hopefully in the near future here, we get some bigger things. COVID obviously has thrown a wrench in everything. But yeah, I think here in the next 5 years, we'll shift more to scholarships and grants. It also depends on how many people keep reaching out to me for more of the counseling aspect of things.
Yeah, I think it's such an underlooked thing in athletics. And I think if you can help, definitely go to Ryan's foundation, ROFDN. Yeah, ROCFDN.
ROFDN.org.
ROFDN. Okay, perfect.
Yeah.
Just a couple quick questions before we wrap up. Now that you're 38, has there gotten to a point now where you can look back and appreciate all you've accomplished? I mean, you made the NFL, man. It's crazy.
Yeah, I mean, I understand what it took, obviously, because I did it, and I do respect that, and I am proud of myself to a point, but now I'm more focused on helping others and working with the NFL to make it better for the next guy who's playing, that's closeted, that wants to come out. And I do a lot of that. I do a lot with the league of just trying to make it easier. When I came out publicly, Roger Goodell, who's the head man at the NFL, reached out to me and asked point blank, what can I do, to help other closeted players? And since then, they took what I said and they've implemented things. And shown that they do actually care. And in the US, the NFL has such a huge impact on society. For them to speak up and take a stance on these things goes a long way. And I think they're starting to realize that.
No, that's amazing. I hate to ask a stereotypical question, but in your playing career, you were 6'7", about 300 plus pounds. How many calories a day were you taking in?
So so there's two types of offensive linemen: the type of guys that have to eat 6,000 calories a day to stay 280 pounds, or guys like me that I didn't starve myself, but barely ate to try to make weight so I didn't get fined. And I was one of those guys, if I just ate what I wanted, I'd be 400 pounds. So I was constantly having to not eat.
Yeah, all the other offensive linemen are hating you right now.
Yeah, well, I wish I was able to eat more, but when you get fined $500 per pound per day that you're overweight, you don't eat.
So I'm going to wrap it up with this, Ryan. And I never want to ask people to give advice because everybody's story is different. But if you could talk to little Ryan, and by little Ryan, you were probably 6'2", 200 pounds, and just kind of like give him like, a word of advice about what's going to happen in the future, what would you say to him?
Yeah, I just tell myself to take a deep breath and breathe and don't take yourself so serious. I actually, some people can look it up if they want, but I did a segment called Note to Self on CBS Mornings, which is a nationwide morning show. And I wrote a letter to my younger self, and it's worth looking up on YouTube. So I wrote it to myself when I was about 18 years old, and it's all about what you just asked me. But yeah, just take a minute and take a deep breath and relax.
Yeah, I definitely encourage all students. We've only had a brief time, all students, just to Google you and look out some of your interviews and some of the things on YouTube you've talked about. It's definitely worth, whether it's to help yourself or to help a teammate. There's no doubt that one of your teammates is going through something, and I just want to thank you for all the amazing work that you're doing for LGBTQ athletes. It's so appreciated, and I'm not sure if you've gotten to the point where you realize like you're saving lives and you're making a difference. So thank you so much.
Yeah, I appreciate it. And yeah, for all the athletes watching, you do have closeted players on your team. So just watch what you say, and there's little ways of letting people know that you're, a supporter of them without outing them or anything like that. So just watch what you say and realize there are out or closeted players on your team.
Just continue the best of luck, Ryan, and we really appreciate you you're sharing your story today. It's not, I'm sure it's not always an easy one to tell, but the fact that you do so will impact so many people. So thank you so much.
Absolutely happy to.
Thanks for the chat, and we'll post this on our YouTube page. Continue watching, and we'll continue bringing you amazing stories like Ryan. Ryan, thanks so much. All the best in 2022, and thanks again.
All right. Thank you, Scott. Bye, guys.